Hey everyone, Jeremy Tillman here with Founder at 50. On today's episode, I have David Berkowitz, a serial marketer who's best known for the hundreds of articles he's written with media trends, his time in agency life, or most recently for running and now selling the AI Marketers Guild. Today we'll hear about David's journey and how he started community building all the way back at Binghamton University, how he spent time at marketing agencies, and how a simple Google form and LinkedIn post spawned the birth of the AI Marketers Guild and where he took it from there. In full transparency, David was kind enough to be one of my first 5 interviews. So thanks, David. Let's jump on in. Hey, David, how's it going?
Good. How you been, Jeremy?
I've been well. Now, I don't know how many times I will do this. I definitely have not yet done this before, but it's fun. I'm just going to open the episode with congratulations.
Well, thank you.
You want to tell the world what's going on in your little world or big world or however it may be?
I'm super new at this because this is the first time I'm recording anything, including in my own series, about what happened here, where I've got a whole new logo and t-shirt and corporate owner now, where AI Marketers Guild, along with the serial marketers community that I've been building these collectively for most of the past decade, and these communities just got acquired by Marketecture Media.
Yay. If I knew how to do sound effects and stuff, I would have like a whole whoosh sounding thing right about here.
Gonna have all these like horns and things like that in Augie, like some of these like buttons to press.
We don't have sound effects yet. So okay. Right now it'll just be like me going, wee. Okay. Well, congrats. It's an amazing accomplishment. And what I want to do is go way back in time right away, and we're going to get ourselves back to this point. So here you are literally in the process, all the way back in time, early 20s, little D Berkowitz getting into his career. I'm going to assume that you could not have said, well, this is where I think I'm going to be on this date in early May 2025. So tell us a bit, where were you, and bring us all the way to like, where did you think you were going in those early years?
Well, the first flashback I'll give you is actually there was some point in probably late middle school where I first thought this, as we're and one of these conversations or something about careers coming up. And I knew that whatever job I'd have hadn't been invented yet. And I don't even know why I knew that. And then as I went down a path that got less traditional and took on roles with titles like emerging media in them and things like that, let alone like, I don't know how many chief community officers there are, and that's now my title under Marketecture. Things like this, it's so different. So I did have some sense, and especially when I graduated college, I hit this fork in the road, and digital media is a big part of it, where the original plan was become a teacher. I loved teaching. I was a substitute teacher. I was an 8-year camp counselor. I loved it. I still love the odd chances I get to do so.
And did you know what kind of teacher you wanted to be? Like middle school math teacher or something like that?
I was most exposed actually to younger ages with like elementary school, and that's where I did a lot of my substitute teaching, that I could do something maybe like that gets it, because I loved reading and literatures. So the idea that I might go somewhere toward an older grade was a possibility, but I just loved the whole art and science of it. And it was a big detour where I was thinking like, okay, teaching remains the hardest job I've ever done in any form I've done it, but it was also the most known. It was definitely the road most traveled from what I was exposed to related to teachers. I knew teachers, I'd done teaching. And so the internet, and especially if we're talking right around 2000 when I graduated college, this was something where I also really loved to write. And it was writing that got me down this whole digital media path. It was like, well, and I actually formed the first digital media student group for my university, Binghamton, which I didn't know was a big deal then. It was just, I was tired of the politics of the campus newspaper, and a friend of mine and I were like, the internet, now it's funny, it's like so much more expensive than it is now to go and like, buy a domain and do all of these things. But at the time, this was the one way I could get away with publishing and not have the cost of a printing press.
Right. You were democratizing access to content.
There we go.
So, okay. By the time you're, let's call it 25, where actually were you?
By 25, I guess I was I'd wrapped up my stint at eMarketer for a few years where I got to learn a ton. So getting exposed to something on the research side was invaluable. I'd interviewed hundreds of people for their newsletters, and it's funny, like still some threads that carry on there. And a lot of the relationships I have to this day are from that whole series. And so by 2005, I was on the agency side. I was working at my first agency, not the first one I built, like iCrossing, that later got acquired by Hearst. I was deep in the search engine marketing space. I was starting to write columns for Media Post. I wrote more than 400 for them over an 8-year span. But I was starting to get a voice out there too, which was fun, but daunting as hell, right? Because like I was reading all of this other stuff from people who had 10, 20, 40 years work experience and who were like really Media Post and some of the trades got brilliant writers. So like for me, who still a kid and without all this, I'm like just trying to hold my own. It was, it was just a great challenge.
It sounds like you had a lot of that joy of the sort of the earlier stages, as each stage of the web has emerged, whether it's the oldest like .com, whatever, through Web 2.0, through et cetera, there's always been these sort of fun, people get their hands dirty playing. It's like the people who were prompt crafting the first couple of years after ChatGPT. Did you at any point in that time of your career, because again, people are very different, were you in the category of, okay, now I've gone to this far, in the next 10 or 20 years, I want to take this to this point? Did you want to be the head of community, the head of an agency, the head of content creator? Where did you see that going? Or were you just kind of drifting along the lazy river to see where it would take you?
Well, the best advice I got from a friend of mine a little bit after that, but he said, write the resume for what you want to be doing 5 years from now. And I loved that advice. And I went back home, and this was like, now I'd probably do that in a heartbeat with ChatGPT. I'd like, take my resume, take everything you know about me, Google Gemini, take all the stuff you're reading that I probably don't even know you're reading, and then just help me come up, ask me some good questions and let's go do this. And it would take me 15 minutes. Then I had to go and open a word processor and do things that were so old fashioned. But I think the exercise even scared me, in part because if you look at some of these different stages, I could have gone and done a bit more ladder climbing on the agency side, even though I went from an innovation strategy track to more of a corporate marketing track. And so it's been not the easiest thing for a ladder climber when you're going from a vine to a ladder to climbing one of those wrecking balls and just climbing whatever the hell you get your hands on. And sometimes it's sideways, sometimes you get knocked down. Also loving and sometimes sweating a little too much from that journey. As I was on the tail end of my 7-year 360i run on that agency stint, it was tremendous. I was meeting a lot of folks like yourself, right? Like a lot of people with really great products, amazing backgrounds, building things that were so useful for agencies and brands, and dealing with a lot of people who just either didn't get the big deal with it, or didn't have time to focus on it, and will be what do I need to do more? I'm fine with YouTube, and maybe I can just use Descript to create something if they're really savvy with things. We have a production team that's in our agency, outsourced group. I don't need, what do I need this stuff for? Right? And just wanted the path of least resistance, and it's hard to blame them for it because they weren't getting paid to go and meet folks like yourself who are upsetting the apple cart in a good way. But I really liked even we were at this event hosted by Darren Herman, Silicon Alley Sports, and so when I met Darren, he was running in-game advertising worldwide. Especially if you look when he was doing this in-game advertising, one of the weirdest things in the world. So I'm psyched to be in the same room as this young founder Darren, who's got some vision that is clearly well ahead of where things are. As smart and accomplished as Darren was is, I couldn't get just anyone and everyone to meet with him.
Right. And so did you at that point, were you all in on agency life? Was this was this feeling your home? It sounds like maybe not. Tell me about that a bit.
So I didn't think of myself as an agency person until the day I left the agency world.
Do you think that's true for all? Is that just like would
No,
all agency
because
people say that?
No, because I meet people like agency people have like a smell to them. They have like a style. Like you can like just see them. I'm not saying this as it is like because after I left, I'm like, oh God, I miss all of these people. I
Sure.
miss the people who care about the service and the work and not just like trying to ship something and do all this like tech stuff and not like all these like feature or bug conversations that you have on the tech side or like trying to go and say you have something that you really don't, that you might not be guilty of, but way too many of your peers and my peers are. So, and now the like this.
David, are you saying that some people who demo their products are maybe not showing what, is there some smoke and mirrors happening in our industry?
I wouldn't dare say that, but like where agencies function well, they're a culture of ideas and a culture of service. And so while I appreciated some of that while I was there, I was like God, I missed that. Right? Like any other place I've been on a full-time or consulting basis that wasn't an agency, I tried to harness the best of what I learned from people like Sarah Hofstetter, who became CEO at 360i, was my boss all the time, or Matt Britton, who was running MRY. Like I tried to bottle all of that and see, like, can I bring 5% of that into this very different room?
Interesting. Funny enough, I have a good friend who she just left an agency to join a e-tailer, and she's so stunned by the change in culture. But for her, it's almost the opposite. She's like, let's go. What when you think about your work today, do you still have that kind of vibe? Like, are there still those few vestigial experiences that you still try to bring with where you go in your present world?
All the time. I mean, well, and some of it also isn't just like work at an agency. Like 360i and MRY were very different places, very different kind of like founder CEO profiles.
Okay.
And so, some people are more like a business operator. Some are more the entrepreneur, the creative, and so seeing how different ones worked, including different motherships like Dentsu and Publicis. When I was under each one, they operated very differently, and both treated me well in a lot of ways, but well in different ways. And so, but there were some things like one of my favorite things that I think Sarah Hofstetter had a great knack for fostering at 360i was getting all the core ideas on one slide, one sheet of paper, one physical board if you're presenting to someone. And even if you have a 200 slide deck, the other 199 slides are the appendix. And so you get like this kind of just be brief and be gone.
And do you use that mentality like when you're doing a thing, whether it's with AIMG or elsewhere, where there's going to be that one slide that's like, this is the meat?
I did it this week because I've been dealing with this one client that has like a lot of very wordy content, a site that isn't the easiest to navigate. And finally, I just was like, something isn't working with all this. And if we're sending someone here, they're going to be so confused. And I just went through everything of reworking the mission and purpose and value proposition and getting everything. And now I've got some AI tools where things like landing page builders are way better than they were. And so I said to the CEO, I'm like, I've distilled, I think, everything we need in one easy landing page. And it's like it's like 100th of the amount of content in a way we tend to share with it. So I'm still trying to go back and apply what I've learned there.
I like that. Since you brought it up, what's your current go-to landing page tool of choice?
Well, I'm always learning, so it might be different if we do this a week from now or if we did this 2 weeks ago. Like Lovable, there's a friend who I'm advising a bit, and like he's been showing me his whole process and the stuff he's like really prototyping on there. I even just needed something I could go and like actually tell the web team, can you just put this up on WordPress as like a thing? But yeah, it brought to life stuff. So, and in this case, what I was even curious about, because some tools, like I see this with a lot of presentation builders, some tools are, and you must see this so much in your domain of the AI powered world, where like there's some encourage you to just start from scratch and like just have a prompt and let the tool do the rest. And some of those aren't very good when you're bringing your own data to it.
Right.
And some of them say like bring your own data and like don't ideate with us and generate with us fully, but then we'll go and put it together in this way and maybe analyze it. Lovable seemed to strike a really good balance of both. And so in this case, I wanted to bring I wasn't going to go and like have like a 2 hour deep dive and generated the value proposition on Lovable, but I
Right.
took the other information and it did a great job. I was like, even just trying to make sure, wait, did it miss anything? Because I've got some really good tight material here. It cannot screw this up and like take creative license. And it was good at following the rules.
Nice. I haven't used Lovable for landing pages, although that sounds like a good one to try. I have been using it for other kinds of app prototyping. I'm currently on a Replit.
Okay, that's another one I got to spend more time
vendor.
on.
Okay. So would love to chat now. So you sort of got into agency and now we know where you are now. We're going to come back to that. What was a bit of that middle journey? So, talk us through like where did you end up before starting AIMG and any particular things of note, like how much of that was, stumbled into the lazy river analogy versus the my whole life is a stumble. So I'm in a good way, by the way. For one of my favorite things I ever learned is that walking is a controlled fall. And so I like to think that my whole career has been this weird controlled fall.
Yeah.
Way.
And what was it? Who was it? Douglas Adams, who was like trying to fall and failing.
Yes, Douglas Adams. Yeah.
Okay. So a number of the things that I wound up starting were out of failure or adverse events or, like that, like, well, didn't expect to be in this situation. Let's make the most of it.
Right.
And so one of the most pivotal moments was actually at MRY. I was there for a few years, and anyone who's spent a while at a publicist agency has experienced one or many reorgs.
Couple of reorgs out there.
So it's like this like badge of honor we all have to get through. And so after surviving one too many, then my name was called. They were actually drastically reducing the size of MRY. But then I was actually going to be speaking at an iMedia Connection event, one of the best ad industry networking things at the time. And I said to them, like, first of all, I'm no longer going to be with this agency then. Do you still want me? And they're like, yeah, come out. And then I'm like, well, I need a title and I need a company. I can't just go out as David Berkowitz. I guess coming from the agency side, I needed another brand. I needed something else to market. And so I thought back to something that Aaron Strout, who later had a great career as the CMO of W2O that became Real Chemistry. But Aaron Strout and I were both speaking at the time at this HubSpot event Inbound. We'd spoken there the year before, so that was 2015. And Laura Fitton, who was organizing the speakers, did a wonderful thing that I'd never seen anyone else do, where each speaker would write a little blurb to introduce another one on the blog. Oh, and so the amount of coordination that took, it was wonderful. Like I hope someone else hears this and is like, I'm going to do that for my event. And she did it for someone with like hundreds of speakers. So those of us who do like a 10 speaker event, like totally steal that. And Aaron titled his intro to me as Serial Marketer, Not Killer. And is
that the first time that reference ever came up?
And so I joined the workforce in 2000. That was 2015. I had never had anyone refer to me as a serial marketer, and I'd never done so myself. So when I need a name, and like also, as you can probably tell from our interactions and even this conversation, that like I have to have a bit of fun with what I'm doing. Like it's like whatever. Like we really are not brain surgeons. We're not like curing cancer here. Like let's have a little bit of fun and not take all of this so goddamn seriously. And so when I was just trying to think, like my second favorite name that I didn't run with was Those Idiots, because I thought it would be really fun for someone to say, like, who are you working with? Oh, Those Idiots. I like that idea, but I'm like it had to be Serial Marketer. Now, as soon as I thought of the name stole the name from Aaron, Serial Marketer, and running with that, then I thought, well, a lot of other people might identify as serial marketers. They might not have such a twisted connection to the name as I do,
Right.
that if your viewers haven't Googled it by now and don't know the reference, they can find it really, really easily. The other guy rants way better than I do. But it's like, well, this is really ownable. But like serial marketers could be like, I'd only heard of serial entrepreneurs before. And so I'm like, well, like maybe a lot of people would be serial marketers. Maybe there's even some kind of community thing that could happen based on this. But I don't want to launch a vanity project. I don't want to launch this like Friends of David thing and just like some of these things get a little too cute and then no one hears of them again and like they don't have any momentum. I then started working for some tech companies like Sysomos. I was headed up strategy for the social listening firm. They were then getting acquired. And so then, okay, there wasn't a role for me in the new Oregon Meltwater, but then I was just joining this other company that would, it didn't quite have the funding that maybe we anticipated. And so there was a very short runway. And so a couple of years later, I'm now trying to figure out my next thing. And I didn't have that all laid out. And so went back to it. I'm like, you know what? Like, let's see, like, would anyone want to join this thing? Here are my ideas. Like, Slack wasn't really used for, it was still much more of an internal communication tool. Very few were using it for anything else, like a public kind of forum. Let's just try this. And so put one post on LinkedIn, put up a Google form that has been the same Google form that I'd been using for 7 years. This was 2018. So, and so that, like that moment, serial marketers community and my role as a community organizer crystallized. And so that's like when this community organizer was born.
So I just want to be really clear, especially for anyone who might be listening on like what, like, you know, the top of the mountain, kicking the snowball, etc., was literally, if I heard you right, LinkedIn post, Google form.
That was it.
Right.
Yeah. And then,
so you didn't build
actually,
hundreds of $1,000s of infrastructure on Google Cloud. You didn't have a marketing team ready to get your go-to-market strategy together. You had no consultants help. You just made a post and put out a form and ...
And a few things where when I saw some of the initial responses come in, I'm like, oh crap, I need to start this now, because I was thinking like maybe I'll start this in a month if like I get like 25, 50 people interested, and so pretty quickly, like the first 100 said they were interested. Now, not all of them joined, right? Like there's, you know, it's like a funnel. There's drop off and attrition, but there was enough happening very quickly. I'm like, shit, I got to go on Fiverr, and had someone get the first logo, and even like stealing, because I was coming from this very academic perspective. The first logo was modeled off a university crest, ironically Cornell's, just because it happened to have the best one I saw in Google Images at the time.
Okay.
And I'm like, take this, like do like learn, try, share as the Latin words on it and stuff. But it was a seal because it was all about learning. And then I'm like, okay, I've got to figure out how to start a Slack instance and like do a few of these like just basic cobble together things. But yeah, we're talking about like first month expenses. I mean, I think I was getting the luxury version of the logo, so I paid $50 for it instead of $5. Actually, the first version, I mean, they charged me as much, but I kept working with this guy out of Indonesia. It was amazing. So yeah, it was very much like MVP, you know, like double-digit expenses.
I love that. So I want to focus on sort of your part of that journey, right? At each moment. So it's been 7 years, you know, and we'll get to where the AIMG shows up in the middle of this, but basically the entire time it's on you to decide, I'm going to keep doing this thing, right?
Yes.
I'm sure there were job offers or different career things that flew around your world, just you're a well-connected guy. Was there anything that was like holding you to the line? Was there anything that was like, was there a vision? Was there a end goal? Was there a destination? Or opposite, was it all journey? Like how did you stay with it for 7 years?
I mean, part of it was, this is like, there was something special about this community. And there were always days where, I mean, there's so many days where it'd be like, is this really active enough? Do people care? Like, why am I doing it? I had a lot of those questions. I thought that there was some place, like it wasn't this defined thing that we're getting, like, I did feel like this was like that there was something tangible being built here, that this like and as it grew a bit, I was like, well, maybe this could actually find a home somewhere else. Like I'd see some
Okay.
others do things like CMO Club or Online Geniuses or some folks I met along the way. I'm like, okay, so exits are at least possible. Monetization was always one of my weak spots too. Like here and there, I'd get sponsors. Once in a while, it would lead to working relationships like one we've had, right? And so there are things like this where it's often indirect, but without me hosting an event in 2023, you and I wouldn't have met right then. And so there's all this serendipity as part of it. And the thing that most kept it going, and especially often at the times I most needed it, was like it would be amazing where there were people I knew very well who then like only when I'd see them in person at like some other happy hour, not necessarily one I was hosting. And like I remember going to one and this friend of mine introduces me to someone else as the organizer of the community that helps him get a job. And I'm
Wow.
like, well, it would have been nice to know that
Yeah.
as it happened, but I'm like, it's just this, and some of it I've seen from the data that the vast majority of interactions in my communities have happened over DM and not in the public forums. Like, so I don't know most of what happens in my own communities. And I hear about this stuff after the fact once in a while when I'm lucky, and then I'm like, it's doing something. Like, and
So you were so
yeah.
you were fueled by knowing that there was value creation happening, even if you couldn't exactly see where the moment was or who it was between, but just the sort of anecdotal support of the community. Is that
Yeah, and so much of it over the years was like I had to do this, right? And like other people can to run communities, of course, but I'm like there is something about this that like I can't tear myself away from. And part of it also what's been a lot of fun with having the communities is that unlike some of the client work I do or things with the job, like I could say yes to all kinds of things, right? Like you come to me and want to say, can we do something where we cut some video in some fun way and share? I'm like let's do this, and I'll release this, and I'll give you lots of credit for it, and like let's create a conversation around it, maybe schedule an event around it. Like I can just say yes to good ideas and work with people I respect and find fascinating and learn from. And so it also gave me this kind of canvas that just like whether an in-house CMO role or a consulting role, like where I'd still have to play by the client's rules. Now I'm like, well, this one, and even later talking to architecture, I'm like, that I've had a lot of help along the way. Like I haven't done this alone, but like the day to day, it's me. Like if you don't like me, you don't want to work with this stuff. Like you don't want these assets.
I love that way of thinking. Like this is who I am. This is what I do. It's all good. If you're not into it, see you another time. I'm
Yeah.
moving on. Short bit, if you don't mind. I'd love to get a quick sense of so you're off building the serial marketers group, and obviously our whole world gets thrown into the AI shows up, right? Whatever version of that story we want. Why did you decide to do a specific thing as opposed to AI being part of the other thing?
That was the big question, and I wanted to avoid it like hell of having another brand and more T-shirts to buy and all of that. But it was very much the last thing I wanted. But then when you have that founder mode of like you have to do this, right? Like and if maybe someone else will, but no one's going to do it quite like this, and like you are the one who should be doing this.
Yeah.
And so when I before I started at Marketers Guild, I was then my role at Mediaocean was winding down again, like dealing with a challenging time yet again.
Right.
And it's amazing how much that story repeats itself for a lot of things I wouldn't wish on someone else. It's like, yeah, go through, like, go and like get laid off, get divorced, do all these things. Right? Like, no, I'd rather you have a much easier life and still come up with all these great opportunities and like build things. But this is definitely the lemons to lemonade version. And so So I started shopping around this idea essentially of the Serial Marketers Association, stealing things from the IAB and the ANA and the 4As, and meeting with great like agency and tech and other people. What would it do to like kind of like add an extra layer to Serial Marketers? I've got some time in my hands. I've got decks worth of things I want to do, and I talk to some great folks, and then come home and add another slide to that deck, and then shop that around and just try to workshop this. Can we get some more sponsors, drive more members? Like, how far can we take this? And then I started talking to some folks like Leo Morhone, who's like a 3-time colleague, but if we haven't worked together officially somewhere, we usually find a way to collaborate. And so it's like, well, maybe I can help you with some of this stuff, and we can do some AI things, and he helped create V1 of the website, and just getting that together. And so like AI Marketers Guild, like it had to exist. There was no place for marketers to really learn from each other about what was happening in an AI, how it applied to their jobs. And Serial Marketers had all these thousands of members in and everything else, but I'm just like, it needed its own brand for AI Marketers Guild. It needed its own forum, and like, yes, as many serial marketers folks who would want to come along the way, but even more importantly, folks who didn't want to join a community in the first place and now are trying to make sense of this and see this as a new opportunity. And it's like one of the things that I was validated by so quickly, not even so much by member size, but the funny thing was like, sometimes folks will reach out and be like, can we co-promote our events? And it was so telling that a few months after AI Marketers Guild launched, when Serial Marketers was literally 10 times the size member-wise, but others would want the AIMG brand on their site, right? It just sounded better.
Right. It was well done on that. So I want to focus on a few areas from here. One, with either of the groups, did you go into it with either any form of expectation of outcome or any definition of success? Where you're like, I will know this was the right thing because X, or again, was it partly just stumbling down the road?
No, I mean, there were things like serial marketers for a long time, for instance, again, there'd be some sponsors that help me justify using this as a loss leader, but even like people are like, well, you're connecting these thousands of people through the community, like, yeah, but it's not on a transactional basis. It doesn't mean I can and in a way, like, I'd want to recommend other people in the community. Like I'd almost apologize if I was DMing someone and saying, that thing that you posted, I can probably help you with that personally. There are other very good people with here too, right? Like I was so cautious about this. I don't want to be the competitor to my community members. Like,
right.
So it was always a very strange kind of relationship. But I was given these rules myself, right? There wasn't like some guidebook or rules to live by. I was like, just once in a while, like, actually, you asked something I am uniquely prepared to answer. Can we talk about this? But no, not really. Like, a lot of it was just like, give me some reason to justify keeping this stuff going. Make sure that people are actually getting things out of it, and I'm getting some of that feedback. There, and even different CEOs I work with, like Matt Britton, the CEO of MRY. When I asked him, like, how can I really best demonstrate, like, what KPIs matter to you? And he says, if I'm on the phone with someone and they've heard of MRY lately, you're doing your job.
There you go.
I don't know what to put in the report, but it's like, I know who I'm working with, but like, that's kind of been my vibe with these communities, as opposed to, say, like the client work where I have to be more rigorous.
So I'm sure you're going to end up telling your story a lot. So I want to just, I'm going to let that happen elsewhere. Was there a point though, as this started becoming as an exit event started becoming a reality, were there any specific things going through your head as to goals outside of whatever transaction, et cetera? Were you looking to be part of something bigger? Give a little nugget around, like, what did you want?
Well, what I've learned also, and this is a mix of personal and professional learnings, but sometimes it does take some experiences of finding what you don't want so that you can really crystallize what you do. And there was another experience that came up really organically over the past year that could have been the right home for these communities and even for me in a full-time capacity. And ultimately wasn't. And it was a very difficult thing where realizing that wasn't the right fit. And then trying
Okay.
to reverse engineer, well, like, okay, how do we not maybe spend 6 months on that process and avoid that? But I also knew even in the worst moments of that, and there was pain involved, right? And I'm still actually very friendly with them, but at the time was like here's like a door closing that was so close to
Right.
on some levels, but it wasn't going to be a fit for either side. And going through that, it was like, well, now if I find the right fit, right? And the right fit, by the way, took 27 days from the initial, could this like even be a thing? It was like a friendly catch-up call until the deal was officially closed. 27 days.
I having gone through when I sold my last startup, there was a similar, like, from the first call to the actual it's crazy sometimes how that can happen.
Yeah.
But just dialing it half back for a second, did you made the comment about like learning what to avoid. Is there any like new rule in life for you? Like, from, when X happens, Y is my approach. You know what I mean? Like, did you learn a new, like, never do that again kind of thing?
I mean, there's some that are probably a little more nuanced rather than that black and white. One thing that I think was very different with the second process versus the first is that in the second process, after the initial conversation where I talked to one of the principals, Jeremy Bloom, and it was just this like great like friendly catch up call. Like within a day or two, I was talking to Eric Paparo, the CEO, and I was like just like meeting the team, and we're just okay, what could it be? And so it was like this very much like team effort, and I got a quick read on who are the people in this room. And the other, I think, like took a really long time before that, like where I was like dealing with more of like a founder situation, and they were more of like a conduit to others who were decision makers and influencing that. And I never really felt that like chemistry and like or just getting a sense of knowing where they're coming from and what their priorities are. And I feel like some of the things maybe could have been smoothed out of sooner, or just like um, different approaches and like different ways each of us was thinking that we were misreading the other.
Yeah.
Probably like if we just spent a little bit more time all in the same room faster, then we could have known either like how to actually make this work well, or how to prevent just a lot of gears being turned for no reason.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, normally I like to ask, like, what does success look like at this stage in life? But I think you're at a particularly interesting juncture. But I would love to go into one last area, which is there someone who, I think of it like, unlocked something about you? Was there an experience, a boss, a mentor, an employee, a partner, teacher, anyone out there where something about your journey together literally changed the way you think about a given thing?
Well, in someone I'll gladly give a lot of credit to, and I was texting him a lot yesterday, was Mark Naples, who's the founder of Wit Strategy, who and he was one of those people who had set me up with some of these great interviews when I was at eMarketer, and so met him really early on, and he actually was the acting CMO of iCrossing at the time when he set up the interview with iCrossing's CEO, and told me after that interview that the CEO wanted me to work with him, and so Mark was the one negotiating like on my behalf, and he helped me out a lot because I was this like struggling journalist. I didn't know anything about the actual corporate side of things. So but Mark has been there at a lot of points along the way, and just like one of those people who, even as I was trying to explore the pros and cons of starting my own business, and he was encouraging that way sooner than I was ready to, and like he'd sometimes tell me the things I didn't want to hear, or wasn't ready to hear, or tell me things at different times, but often so encouraging. And even when I need a little PR advice for this new venture, I'm like I don't want to ask for something that I can't pay for, but like he just point me in the right. He's literally the only person I was calling for things like that, and we're even just working on something where we could actually collaborate in a much bigger way this year, and do so where like if he and I can work together again, there's just so much mutual respect built up over the years, and he's like been that guardian angel who's popped up a few times when I've really needed it. So I have him to thank in many ways.
That's a great story. Well, David, I love catching up with you. It was great to see you this past week, IRL, and congrats on your success. So everybody watching or listening, Google form and LinkedIn post to
They still work.
Successful exited entrepreneur. In it just took that little moment to get things somewhere. So I hope the next phase of your journey is just as rich as this last one has been. Thank you so much for taking time with me today, David. Where do you want people to go find things? Tell us a URL or other place to go find you / something interesting you want them to go to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm D Berkowitz most places, especially LinkedIn, and happy to point in the right direction. AIMarketersGuild.com is still alive and well under the Marketecture umbrella. So happy to have your audience just join us or stop by an event sometime.
Wonderful. And as a subscriber to Marketecture and a member of your community, now I guess it's just doubled down in my world. And thanks for joining me on Founder at 50, David, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me. You too, Jeremy.